Now I have to pick a verse. I was thinking to speak something about Queen Kunti, Canto 1, Chapter 8. It's already at that Canto 1, Chapter 8. You just have to pick a verse. Anybody familiar with Queen Kunti's prayers and has a favorite verse you'd like me to read from this evening? What's that one? Say it. You know the verse number? What? 40? Okay. I don't know what you, I don't know. 40, 42. There it is. And it's on the screen, right? It's just now coming. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet. Oh, this is the one. Gange Vagyam Udhanvati. Okay, but sometimes it shows. If you can look on your little handheld device without the screen, 1, 8, 42, 1, 8, 4, 2. Tvai me nanya vishaya matir madhupate sakrit ratim udvahatad adhya gange bhagyam udanvati tvai me nanya vishaya matir madhupate sakrit ratim udvahatad adha gange bhagyam udanvati. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Nice long purport. Perfection of pure devotional service is attained when all attention is diverted towards the transcendental loving service of the Lord. To cut off the tie of all other affections does not mean complete negation of the finer elements like affection for someone else. This is not possible. A living being, whoever he may be, must have this feeling of affection for others because this is a symptom of life. The symptoms of life, such as desire, anger, hankering, feelings of attraction, etc., cannot be annihilated. Only the objective has to be changed. Desire cannot be negated, but in devotional service, the desire is changed. Only for the service of the Lord, in place of desire for sense gratification. The so-called affection for family, society, country, etc., consists of different phases of sense gratification. When this desire is changed for the satisfaction of the Lord, it is called devotional service. Next page. There's a japa machine. In the Bhagavad Gita, we can see that Arjuna desired not to fight with his brothers and relations just to satisfy his own personal desires, but when he heard the message of the Lord, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, he changed his decision and served the Lord. And for his doing so, he became a famous devotee of the Lord, for it is declared in all the scriptures that Arjuna attained spiritual perfection by devotional service to the Lord in friendship. The fighting was there. The friendship was there. Arjuna was there and Krishna was there. But Arjuna became a different person by devotional service. Therefore, the prayers of Kunti also indicate the same categorical change in activities. Srimati Kunti wanted to serve the Lord without diversion, and that was her prayer. This unalloyed devotion is the ultimate goal of life. Our attention is usually diverted to the service of something which is non-godly or not in the program of the Lord. When the program is changed into service of the Lord, that is to say, when the senses are purified in relation with the service of the Lord, it is called pure, unalloyed devotional service. Srimati Kunti Devi wanted that perfection and prayed for it from the Lord. Paragraph. Her affection for the Pandavas and the Vrishnis is not out of the range of devotional service because the service of the Lord and the service of the devotees are identical. Sometimes service to the devotee is more valuable than service to the Lord, but here the affection of Kunti Devi for the Pandavas and the Vrishnis was due to family relation. This tie of affection, in terms of material relation, is the relation of Maya, because the relations of the body and the mind, or the mind, are due to the influence of the external energy. Relations of the soul, established in relation with the Supreme Soul, are factual relations. When Kunti Devi wanted to cut off the family relation, she meant to cut off the relation of the skin. The skin relation is the material cause of bondage, but the relation of the soul is the cause of freedom. This relation of the soul to the soul can be established by the via medium of the relation with the super soul. Seeing in the darkness is not seeing, but seeing in the light, by the light of the sun, means to see the sun and everything else which was unseen in the darkness. That is the way of devotional service. Prabhupada is carrying over from the previous verse. In this purport, the previous verse is the cutting, please cut the tie of affection for the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. And then he's explaining further. So, it's a fine line. In another sense, it's different between day and night. the affinity for the temporary and affinity for the eternal. The fine line, because the eternal is within the temporary. So bodies, within bodies, there are souls that animate the body. And therefore, affinity for the temporary is due to the presence of the temporary, is due to the soul. Without the soul, the body isn't there. The body will disintegrate, or the body may integrate because of the presence of the soul, and therefore the external is the object of attachment commonly, in forgetfulness of the eternal. If we think that thinking in terms of the body, thinking of the self in terms of the body and others in terms of their bodies, it's quite natural. And becoming attached on the platform of the body, etc., 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 and identifying my family, my society, my community, my group in terms of the body is very easy, very natural. So the prayer that she's offering can be misunderstood. She's not praying, she's not requesting Krishna to transform her into an impersonalist, or she doesn't care anymore about her sons, doesn't care anymore about her father's family, because that's the reference. The Vrishnis means her father and that whole side of where she came from. And they're in the Vrishni realm. They're in Dwarka. And over here is her sons. So she can't be in both places. So she has affinity for one, and then there's separation from the other, and vice versa. So it's, please remove the material portion of that affinity. What does that look like? When the material portion of affinity is taken away, it's not that there is no affection. It's natural. And the idea is not to anesthetize the natural. The idea is to spiritualize the natural or the material. We were discussing just this morning from Bhagavatam, Krishna's teachings, Uddhava. Same point was being made in the purport. Worldly things of life, specifically, Prabhupada mentions in this purport, brushing your teeth and taking bath and dressing, putting your clothing on, just everyday things. They're not to be neglected. They're not to be made zero. There are persons that Nagabhagams, they have no clothing and don't take bath. And that's nice. That's an austerity they like. But the Hari Sambandha Vastuna, that which is in relation to Hari Sambandha, that's to be accepted, not to be rejected or made zero. The teaching of Rupa Goswami makes these, it coincides with Queen Kunti's teachings. The main thing is, aside from the detachment, is attachment. Next message of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5. What is called renunciation is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. Then he says in reverse, because without being attached to the Supreme, no one can be renounced. That sense of renunciation is Phalgu Vairagya. in Rupa Goswami's language. False. False renunciation. That which is in relation to Hari, I give it up. That which is the property of somebody else, I renounce it. Just see how renounced I am. But it wasn't mine to renounce to begin with. Nor is it someone else's to renounce to begin with. It's the curtain of illusory potency. It makes one think one way or the other way. It's mine, or let me renounce it. The spiritual conception, just the principle is simple, and there's different ways of looking at the same principle. The prayer is, it's a celebrated verse, this one, that let my mind flow to the sea, like the river flows to the sea, like the Ganges flows to the sea forever. Let my mind flow forever to you. I want to attain. She's speaking as if she's a sadhaka or something like that, as if she's not a realized person. So she's asking Krishna for that stage of further elevation from the stage of being bewildered to the stage of being attached. There's a nice teaching, amongst many nice teachings, there's a nice teaching by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explaining higher stages of bhakti, where just prior to the bhava stage, there's ruchi and asakti. And he describes the distinction between them. They're very similar. Ruchi means taste, and asakti means attachment. So they're very elevated emotional states. It's just a condition of the mind. And in the former of the two, intelligence directs the mind. And there's some taste for the object, Krishna, or Krishna's name, or Krishna's service, or Krishna's form, Krishna's qualities, directed by the intelligence. So intelligence is supporting. And in the attachment side, intelligence isn't guiding directing anymore. The mind goes. And the description is, there isn't, one doesn't have the ability in that stage to see the intelligence is not driving the mind anymore. The mind is just going because of attachment. But nonetheless, it's a stage of bhakti. So she, Kunti, is praying for that attachment. She has the attachment. She's praying as if she doesn't. Let my mind, like the Ganges flowing to the sea forever, be attached to you. She's requesting that asakti stage. She's beyond the asakti stage. Beyond the bhava stage. She's at the prema bhakti stage. She's already there. But in her humility, one can say, she's Super Soul is directing her to speak the way that she's speaking. Which, Krishna is speaking through her to instruct us. So we have a nice Bhagavatam verse to read. But her feelings of humility are genuine. Come on in. We're going to pause while you come on in. The feelings of humility of a elevated Vaishnava, it's not cosmetic, it's not pretense, it's not, I should speak like this, so I'll speak like this, because when you're elevated, you shouldn't think of yourself as elevated, you should think of yourself as not so elevated, so I'll speak like I'm not so elevated. It's not, it's the nature of an elevated soul that they feel this way, and when they feel this way, they speak this way. And the net result is they're instructing. The intention is not, let me instruct everybody, this is, when you're an elevated person, this is how you should speak. You should speak. As if she's not elevated and wants to become. She wants to become attached, where her mind has that like spot, like a river, the Ganges, is not intelligence driving it. It's just the river, the water is flowing downstream or downhill naturally by law of nature, by gravity, down into the sea. So Krishna being like the sea, let me mind go to you forever. That she's already there. But she's speaking as if she's not. Now, what are we supposed to do with teachings like this, or verses like this? We can take it, we're sadhakas, and we want to become further advanced in sadhana bhakti, so we'd like to become Kunti-like. So she's teaching by her example in that sense. The Bhagavatam is a literature like that, just teaches by example. So she's teaching us by her example. But the message is, the big picture is, there's a consistent portrayal in the Bhagavatam of so many devotees that are very, very elevated, and the singular factor that's common to all of them is their attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in different ways, according to different natures and different relationships with the Lord, they serve in different ways. She's serving as the mother of the Pandavas. And the Pandavas she's attached to, in part because they're her sons, and naturally so, and also she's attached to them because they're very dear to Krishna, and Krishna is very dear for her, and they're very dear to her because they're very dear to Krishna. So she's like the mother, like the protector, or that's her motherly mood. She's very concerned, very interested in their welfare, knowing that they can fend for themselves, etc., etc. They can protect her, but her motherly affection is what it is, and it's quite natural. And so she's not, back to the previous verse. I'll read the previous verse. You're all familiar with the verse, but it's nice to hear it again. Oh, Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, personality and form of the universe, please sever my tie of affection from my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. It's not impersonalism. It's not anesthetizing emotion, but it's the material portion leaving the spiritual portion. Everybody likes to sit in the back. How about this? Everybody move forward. Everybody move forward. You too? come forward. Come forward. Because then people get the privilege of sitting in the back. But you can't do that if you don't come forward. For some, different devotees have different heroes. And for some devotees, Kunti's a hero or heroine. She's an example-setting personality to look up to and aspire to be like her. You know, some of you are mothers, and so mothers have a role model, Kunti. And you have affection for your parents and your in-law parents, and you have affection for your own children. And that affection for those personalities may sometimes get challenged by this circumstance or that worldly matters, health or danger or something. And then it makes it hard to stay focused on your sadhana, your devotional practices. So the idea is not to become callous or numb. The idea is following the role model, become attached to the spiritual reality of this person, that person, this relationship, that relationship, and cultivate the Krishna-centeredness. It's a nice statement. It's in the purport that we just read. That keeping it simple, a soul-to-soul relationship is possible through the via medium of the Supersoul. I say it negatively. Without the via media of Supersoul, having a soul-to-soul relationship is imagination. And there's lots of there's soul brothers or soulmates without any relation to the Supersoul. It's not it's something else. It's not really a soul-to-soul relationship. And there is such a thing. Yes, on the platform of Krishna consciousness. Kunti is on the platform of Krishna consciousness. She's speaking as if she's not. But it gives the opportunity, at least for our commentators, to elucidate what's the soul-to-soul relationship. What does it mean to have Krishna in the center of any relationship? The vitality of any relationship is the Krishna consciousness at the center. And I'm just going to go over to the left field a little bit, come back, and then I'll end, see if there's some discussion. A characteristic of a spiritually elevated person is they have compassion for the suffering of others. And they want to do something. There's a nice teaching that compassion has an affective side and it has a motivational side. A cognitive side, an affective side, and a motivational side. 3. So I recognize by analysis, I can understand a cognitive feature, then something that's connected with that cognition. And then action. I want to do something. And there's so many examples in Scripture that verify this or illustrate it. Our founder Acharya is one such example. What was one can say a variety of things. What was motivating him was Bhaktisiddhanta's instruction, and he was being attached to Bhaktisiddhanta. That's the affective side. He sacrificed. And sacrificed and sacrificed and nonstop sacrificed. There's an affective side. And then there's a cognitive side. He saw what the scripture says, people are suffering. Sarve sukhino bhavantu. He wanted to see that people are not unnecessarily suffering. And suffering is unnecessary suffering. The suffering is due to the misdirected free will or intelligence that's guided towards sense gratification or towards myself as the enjoyer separate from Krishna kind of consciousness or material consciousness brings suffering. It looks like I'm going to get happiness and something else happens, the opposite. And not understanding that peril, people do it again and again and again and again and again, and lifetime after lifetime and lifetime, and keep just trying to do it in a different way maybe, but the same principle, the same ignorance of different colors. And understanding the cognitive is understanding that, let me do something. And then comes what a great personality, in our case, founder Acharya, but anybody that's a great soul. And so many examples. Vyasadeva did what he did because he saw what he saw and he felt what he felt. So he did what he did. Cognitive, affective, and practical activity, motivational. He saw people in this age of Kali were going to suffer terribly, and he wanted to do something. So he did what he did. He did what was, he was empowered to do, what was natural for him, what he was gifted to do. And we are also. Now, we're in a different position than Vyasadeva, but it's not that Prabhupada's life, leaving aside Vyas, not that Prabhupada's life was always free from bumps in the road. It happened twice. When Prabhupada was in India, he had a whole, I forget the number of pages, a very lengthy, entire beginning to end commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and someone stole the manuscript. And he just started over again. Something similar happened in New York. He was living in a loft and some crazy person came and stole his typewriter and stole his manuscript. He was working on the second version of Bhagavad Gita. He just started again. He didn't lament. It was, in other words, the duality of this material world is there for a transcendentalist, but they're not affected by it in the same way that we're affected by it. For us, it's like calamity or, something. So there's cognition of the misfortune of being in the material world, and at the same time, let me do something for the suffering humanity. And boy, did he do something. and empowered by Krishna to do, so he was able to do an enormous scale, and we're little people, and we're not of that empowerment caliber, but whatever little we can do, that's we're meant to do. meant for ourselves and in turn to our capacity for others. And that's our life. As one becomes elevated, that's what one does to one's capacity, according to one's nature, in different ways. The message of Mahabharata is not so much as the emphasis, let's say, on the followers, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers. That is, the emphasis of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers is very strongly in the manner of at least Nama Sankirtan and give teachings and all of that, regardless of one's position, not just one who was born a Brahmana. Just hearing Prabhupada describe Ramananda Roy. And it is in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's discussion with Ramananda Roy, the Brahmana Nimai Pandit, now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sannyasi, is honoring Ramananda Roy as guru. And Ramananda Roy is, what? You're an elevated Brahmana and I'm a Shudra. By caste, by occupation, he's an administrator, he was a governor. But by birth, he was a Shudra. And by qualification, he's a guru. So he was reluctant to have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speak of him so highly. And then Mahaprabhu spoke the verse. Well, what's the qualification for being guru? And if one has the qualification for being guru, it doesn't matter the background. He's guru. Yea, Krishna Tattva, say Guru Hoy. Know that's Krishna Tattva. And then what does it take to become a knower of Krishna Tattva? Well, it takes hearing from one who knows Krishna Tattva and a willingness to learn from them in a submissive manner. And then live accordingly. And that's the qualification. And so we're all meant to do that, meant to receive, live our lives according, and in circumstances that we can engage in, share with others what that teaching is that we've received. Receive it, live it, share it. And that's the emphasis in the followers of Lord Chaitanya. We don't hear so much about the preaching aspect, the preaching, teaching aspect, other than just simply being a model. And Kunti certainly is such a model. And her elevated sons and the elevated members of the royal family also modeled that teaching. So much so that whatever Kunti said, she's the mother, and so we followed it, regardless of what if it made sense or whatever, in alignment with Scripture, but we followed it because that's what. So emphasis in Mahabharata is more on establishing proper standards of Dharma, and adhere to Dharma, and that's a proper way to live. So these the different personalities are instructive of Dharma and Adharma, both. What not to do, what to do. So Kunti is in that category. She's a Mahabharata personality, teaching an ideal mother and an ideal elder amongst others, setting a nice standard for us to look up to and learn from. Because it's the Mahabharata now moving into the Bhagavatam, it's the Bhagavatam's message, the exclusive fixation upon the personality of Godhead. Vyasadeva was not satisfied because he didn't do that sufficiently. It was there in the rest of what he had compiled, but not sufficient, not singularly focused. And so that's the Bhagavatam, taking the message of morality of the Mahabharata and moving it into singular focus on the personality of Godhead. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or Gaura Leela, is to take that principle of the Bhagavatam and distribute it widely by sound and by example. Because the age of Kali and people are suffering. So we have to do something. You have to do something. As many of you know, we just had this retreat. And one of the best parts of the retreat is what happens after the retreat. Meaning, the person that receives something, how are they going to not just let it get washed away in a memory, but go further? So, efforts to help bring sanghas together. Here's a little example, and I'm going to stop. A little example is, there was a student from Rice University, Fernando. Did you meet him? Okay. So he's now it's their spring break from Rice University. So he's at the ashram, the Brahmachari ashram in Houston. I only know that because that's where Charyanishta is also. And they're spending time together before Charyanishta starts traveling, and after his spring break, he's going to go back to school. But he was very new to Krishna consciousness, and somehow, being an inquisitive person, etc., he caught fire. I mean, I'm sure he has his doubts and uncertainties and different ideas, and everything's going to take some time. But the follow-up afterwards is very special, and without besides other names. So, creating situations, we also have the same opportunity. Every one of us have the same opportunity in this venue, that venue, the other venue. Distributing books, and then following up with people that get the books. And, one can, how we engage ourselves in those activities is going to be according to our circumstance and capacities and time and duties and stages of life and all those other nice things. But it's a principle that there's Prabhupada's statement, where there's life, one will preach. So different people, different circumstances add to the effort. So distributing the Bhagavatam and reading groups for people that now are recipients of the Bhagavatam. It's just 1, 2, 3, completely natural. For people that don't have it, to have it, that's fantastic. And then to start reading it, more fantastic. To start asking questions about, and then living accordingly. That's even more fantastic. And whatever that looks like in terms of their others' lives, it's fantastic. And it's a beginning that's never lost, as opposed to something material. And just, the activity is very simple and very pleasing to the mind and to the heart. So let's see if there's some discussion. Different evening class than usual.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Kunti Maharani here asking to cut off the affection so that she can have undivided devotion to Krishna. So is something like taking sannyas?
No. She didn't give up being the mother of her sons. Sannyas means giving up those ties. Its focus is it's maintaining those relations, the Vrishnis and the Pandavas, with Krishna as the recipient of her affection, as the target of her affection. And thus, the affection to her sons and to the Vrishnis becomes even greater because it's more fully on the transcendental platform as opposed to something mixed. No, to say it again, she's speaking that message as if she's a sadhaka, and she's not, but taking it as if she's like a sadhaka instructing us. The teaching is not to become renunciates. Become very Krishna conscious in the relationships and all the other aspects of your life. Just like we read this morning, brushing your teeth and taking bath. Do that in full Krishna consciousness. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hi, Bo.
I have a question on being compassionate.
Okay.
So, for example, if I have a service in the temple and at the same time I see one other family who is in need of help, something happened and somebody I have to help. I mean, they might need some help to take them to the hospital or some other kind
Something,
of yeah. So which one should I give preference to? Should I just focus on doing my service at the temple and being that those families a non-devotee family, should I, so this has always been in my mind. I wanted to
Well, it depends on your capacity. And, one answer is do both. But it depends on capacity. And then your service at the temple. It depends on, is it time-bound, meaning it's with the deity worship, and so it's got to be at this time, and it's over at that time, because that's it. Because you lose that window, and you lose the service, or the deity doesn't get the service, or something. So some services are not so time fixed, like deity worship related service is time fixed. And so when there's flexibility, so there's variables. The short answer is depends. And as much as you can, you see either to do both, or see that somehow that other family that has a need and it's reasonably within your resources to deal with it, you try to deal with it. Here's a little example that's just thinking of your question. There is a devotee, not a non-devotee, but a devotee had a triple bypass surgery. And, a nice devotee. So the community where he's living, they took turns looking after him in the hospital, and then to the point where he was out of the hospital. And he felt like a little baby. It was like being cared for left, right, and sideways. And the persons some of the persons that were engaged in that activity were compromising other services they do. Their own health wasn't like super great, but it wasn't a triple bypass in the hospital with medication and tubes and all that stuff. So having care. So there was a team effort sacrifice to help one person that was in need. And it's not like everybody that has a triple bypass, you're going to be able to do that. But there's, a nice devotee who these individuals knew, and they wanted to have them feel support. My understanding of healing is healing will happen more quickly if one has that sense of connection than if one doesn't. So, very quickly, not super quickly, but very quickly, reasonably quickly, out of the hospital and back home. So that's a service that was time bound, and then many families pitched in and did something meaningful, not just out of pity or something, but because they care for this devotee. And it was good for them and good for him. So that's an example. Now back to your question. It depends. And if you can't do, you see there's a need and you can't do both because whatever the reason you can't do both, then make an attempt to see if somebody can. And a non-devotee person will certainly appreciate the effort of anybody that if they have a need, and then the affection goes to the devotees, plural, besides just that one devotee. The appreciation for Krishna grows. But, and one other factor in your question, in response to your question, is for whom are you doing this? There's piety and there's paradharma.
In this case, if this is a non-devotee family, somebody whom I know, and they had to go. The lady of the family went through surgery because of the fracture, so she cannot cook for the kids who had autistic kid. She had a autistic kid as well. So this is a situation. But for example, if I have my own service in the temple, normal cleaning service that I have to do, it's a time bound. So
then you do your deity service in the temple, and when it's possible, you extend a hand to help in the other circumstance. And just that gesture will touch the heart of the person, and it's not, that you should be mindful for whom are you doing either. And because that's the goal is that Krishna should be pleased. So we don't neglect, but we can't take on the responsibility of the needs of everybody because there's too many everybody's. But somebody that so you can do something, but a little something. And then you're not responsible to gather up other little somebodies and do other little something and a little something, but you do something according to your time and capacity,
Okay, Maharaj.
and be happy. Know that Krishna will be pleased with this effort.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Sure. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. This question is not related to the lecture, but a naive question. When Kali Yuga ends, all the souls, they go back in the womb of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. My question was, when Dhruva Maharaj, he did tapasya, he meets the Lord and he's purified. When we go back into the womb, we don't get purified at all.
I got distracted as you were speaking. I was thinking, this doesn't have anything to do with the evening's topic.
Sorry.
It's a curiosity item. It's not a 10, it's not a 0, but it's not a 10 either. And so I was distracted on meditating on how I should respond to the question that is off topic. And I'm mentioning something that's off topic. Maybe you want to know what happened to Dhruva during the cosmic annihilation?
He was purified when he saw the Lord. But at the end of the journey, like all the souls, right? At the end of Kali Yuga, they also go back. And then they are released again into the Prakriti. What I wanted to know was, when they go back, do they get purified? Because when we leave the body,
No.
the
No.
Okay.
It's just, when somebody is administered anesthesia, they're just, consciousness is covered.
Okay.
When the anesthesia wears off, they resume whatever they were doing from whatever position they were in. So that's what happens. I was just listening, Prabhupada speaking, the little recording device, Sankhya philosophy, Kapila Dev speaking, and Prabhupada was addressing the question, how do varieties come? And his answer, he asked the question and says that some people have this idea, that idea, the other idea, material, philosophies and science, but it was already existing. Then he gave this example. During the cosmic annihilation, the living entities enter into the body of Mahavishnu in resting period, and when they're again sent, they just resume. They're awarded bodies. The varieties of bodies and circumstances of those bodies are just a continuation. Time was withdrawn or suspended, and then time energy started it up again. Without the influence of that 25th element, the time element, which is representative of Krishna, you don't have creation. With it, just things resume, suspended and then resume. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
Maharaj. It's just a little overwhelming thinking that through all the ages, we are in Kali Yuga. I don't know how many times I've taken birth and gone back and taken birth and gone back.
Well, yeah, we don't know how many times.
I have a question. There's no question online.
You're just controlling the microphone.
Yeah.
Okay. All the way in the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. I have a question for the attachments. So when we start our Krishna consciousness journey, so we always attach to the family, And always, again, we want Krishna too. Like, I want my family, myself, my needs, and plus Krishna.
Good,
Then,
good.
then I have to reach a stage where I want only Krishna.
Well, you want Krishna in the center of all those relations.
But I heard in one lecture that one Prabhuji was saying that finally we have to reach a stage that I don't mind whatever happens to me, but I want to reach a particular stage where I want only, or I'm thinking about only Krishna, not myself.
Well, let's take the case of the next chapter, Grandfather Bhishma.
Yeah.
Pure devotee, no question about it. He's one of the 12 Mahajans. He's the great authority. And his whole life he was serving. And at the end, he withdrew. Voluntarily.
Yes.
It wasn't like take sannyas. It was nirvikalpa samadhi. So serving. So, and look what Prabhupada did. It's similar.
Yeah.
You know, serving, till he was unable to, and even when his body's emaciated, he's giving the bhakti. So he's serving Krishna. And by serving Krishna, serving so many living entities, and setting an example for us that we can't imitate, but we can learn from that example till the last breath.
So when we keep on serving like that until our last breath, then we'll automatically.
The material affinity wanes, and eventually it's gone.
Okay.
But the service doesn't necessarily stop. But the material affinity stops or diminishes till it becomes nothing.
Okay.
And then there's, ashrams. There's different, this ashram, that ashram, the other ashram. It's not that forever, for the rest of your life, remain a grahastha. I mean, there's stages in vanaprastha and, full immersion in exclusive service to Krishna. But it's not, I don't care anymore. I'm beyond the state, I'm numb. I have no feelings at all for anybody or anything. It's just Krishna. That's not the, it's artificial. It's not the aspiration or the model to go for. Affinity is there, but the best way I can serve those who I have affinity for is elevation of Krishna consciousness. And then one may do whatever one may do in that elevated Krishna conscious state. Like what Prabhupada did, you've seen that video. His body is skin and bone, and he's giving the Bhaktivedanta purports.
Yes.
So he's doing what the gift that Krishna gave empowered him to do. So we do that, whatever that is, to our capacity. It's not. That's an example. It's not the only example. Grandfather Bhishma is a separate. So the focus in both cases or any case, Krishna.
Okay.
And this particular verse that she wanted to hear us speak about, like the Ganges flows downstream to the sea, let my mind go to you. And whatever the rest is, that's what the rest is. But that one thing, that's her one request, her primary request. Okay?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. For example, there are two devotees. One have the shelter of Guru and other don't. But both the devotees are doing the same service. So what will happen after the life? For
What will happen after this life?
Yes, Maharaj.
If what? Now what, pardon me, but I'm not wearing my hearing aid. Wait a minute, not three people, one person. Go ahead. Oh,
And both were like doing the service to
doing
the Lord.
service.
Yes.
Both doing service, one initiated, the other not initiated. What's the destination after this life? That's your question.
Yes, Maharaj.
The answer is depends on yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. That's what it depends on. It's not what Krishna says. Those that are initiated, they get 5 gold stars. And those that are not initiated, they get 1 gold star. So whatever the mind is fixed on. So now, how does one get the mind fixed on Krishna without having taken shelter of representative of Krishna? And then, so there are ways of taking shelter without diksha, that's shiksha. So, it's just, there's refinements and subtleties and things. But having received the gift from one who has the gift of bhakti, that's essential. So that one can have the mind fixed on Krishna, that's bhakti. And you had received bhakti from one who's giving bhakti. So whether the formality of diksha, supposing there are persons that die before their diksha takes place, but their mood is having received bhakti from one who's giving bhakti, their mode is fixed. So that's as good as the one who's initiated. Because there may be somebody that's initiated that's not so fixed. I know a few people that are initiated and not so fixed. But it's an asset that they have taken shelter, etc. And that has been given to them through mantra. So it depends.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki